Morning glory, evening grace, brethren and sisters. Have everybody back along with us here with a Temperance Awakening, and now our 16th vaping lecture, and looking at day 9 of our 28-day therapeutic step program to quit vaping. And now today on day 9, we're going to be looking at emotional cues. So we kind of mentioned this yesterday in day 8. So now being day 9, going to look particularly at these emotional cues. And so if you particularly, I'd encourage you to take notes throughout, even if you do have the textbook, but particularly though if you don't have the textbook, then be ready for some of these emotions that we're going to mention here in just a moment. And so feelings themselves can point you to vape if you regularly puff in response to certain emotions like anger, fear, guilt, joy, loneliness, or, any other emotions. Now, like some people have used vaping to enhance a good mood, like feeling excited, happy, or satisfied, or to escape a bad mood, such as feeling anxious, bored, or depressed. And correctly identifying feelings is critical to your quit because you need to reprogram yourself, so that's a key word there, reprogram yourself away from vaping as a coping mechanism or a crutch, which is why lots of people have used nicotine over the years, and drink alcohol and so forth. And putting a name to how you feel is the first step toward mastering your emotions and using them for good. And so we have some of the most common emotional cues here, and we'll look at them in this table. We're going to mention an emotion, and then the result when it's embraced, and then the result when it's directed. So you can kind of write out a table there, like if you don't have the textbook, write emotion, result when embraced, and then result when redirected. And the first emotion that we have to mention here is anger. Anger. And the results of that when it is embraced is rage or stress. So anger, the emotion, and then rage and stress when it's embraced. But then the result when it's directed is motivation, power, action. So use that anger to motivate yourself. To have power to do good and perform that action. And the next emotion is fear. Fear. And a result when it's embraced is worry, panic, or paranoia. But the result when redirected is wisdom, self-protection, and good instincts. Then the next emotion is guilt. And the results when that is embraced is immobility and numbness. Then the results when redirected would be justice and good values. And of course, as always, as you write these down, feel free to pause the lecture if you have to as you go along, try to these down. And now the emotion of joy. The result when embraced is hysteria and mania. Hysteria, mania. But the results when redirected would be passion, hope, and love. So whenever we have that joy, have passion and hope to love people and to do good in the world. Then the emotion of loneliness there. Result when embraced is isolationist and helplessness. Then the result when redirected would be independence and self-reliance. Then the emotion of pain or hurt. The results when embraced would be misery, hopelessness, and depression. Misery, hopelessness, and depression. And then the results when redirected would be healing, discovery, and growth. And then the emotion of shame, the last one here. That results when embraced would be worthlessness and self-pity. Worthlessness and self-pity. Then the result when redirected would be humility and humanity. So as we can see, all of these emotions can lead to negative or positive feelings. And you have the power to decide which, and everybody does. First we acknowledge the emotions and then respond to them rationally and redirect to them, like in the positive ways. Like listed there in the third column, results when redirected. Like humans are very much creatures of habit, and more often than not, we react to similar situations in similar ways. When mad, some people yell. And when some people are sad, they isolate themselves. They go off into a room or something by themselves and, stay away from their family and other people. So maybe the next time you're feeling particularly emotional, especially like if that emotion would cause you to vape, try responding to that differently. If you're feeling lonely, make a point to see. Maybe call or text your quit buddy or somebody on your quit team. And then also helps to develop specific mantras for specific emotions. And like we've already looked at that a little bit, like mental mantras, like in previous lectures. And you might see which ones, work best for the emotions that you're feeling. And also get ready to write down here some self-care activities. We're going to mention a few of these things. Because if you might need something a little bit, more active, than just thinking about these emotions, like, that can help some people, especially, I think, very introverted people. But if you want something more active, then try some of these positive things here, some positive, healthy actions, to help yourself feel calmer and more secure. And first one here, maybe make yourself like a cup of coffee, tea, or cocoa. And like we mentioned, decreasing caffeine, that's what a lot of people really need to do. Like whenever they're trying to quit nicotine particularly, so you can make decaf coffee. Or like if even tea has too much caffeine, drink some green tea, that's very healthy, and that has caffeine, but not a whole lot. Then of course there's also herbal tea, and then, just also decaffeinated, some other decaffeinated tea, if you're a sweet tea drinker that likes it cold, or something like hot chocolate. Or maybe then take a shower or a bath. Like meditate, or pray. Stretch. Maybe listen to some soothing music, like classical music. Like read the Bible, read a good book, like a devotional book or something. Some type of book, that can help you, or, listen to an audio book. Like we mentioned there, maybe call or text, your quit buddy or a member of your quit team. Like maybe watch, like a motivational, something that can help you that's like motivational. Like I said, if you're a person of faith, like listen to some good preaching or good teaching. Some type of self-help program or something family-friendly that could help you. Like maybe go for a walk, do some exercise, jog, lift weights or whatever. Maybe find like a new good hobby, kind of like we mentioned, that might could take up vaping, like painting, playing an instrument, cooking, something along the lines of that. Writing, that kind of helps a lot of people. Like we mentioned, I encourage you to keep a journal. Write in your journal how you feel and so forth. That really helps a lot of people more than they think it would. And emotions are very valid, and we should acknowledge them, but we cannot let them control our life. And that's really what nicotine is doing to a lot of people, whenever they use nicotine as a scapegoat with emotions. And as you direct these emotions here, you're reprogramming them, like I said, very key word, reprogramming them to have less power over you. When you create new emotional responses, the old ones will fade away and you'll succeed in your quit. And so now, before we look at our assignments, we're going to go ahead and do our team talk and talk to parents here that have teenagers that are quitting vaping. And the topic here is, of course, about emotions and looking at managing emotional triggers. And like everybody else, it's very common for teenagers to want to vape to escape bad moods or to prolong good ones. But teenagers often can have trouble figuring out what they're feeling because their emotional awareness is developing along within their bodies. And as a parent, here's some things that you might can do to help your teen manage his or her feelings without, them reaching for the vaping material. The first one here is allow breaks. take a breather, from an upsetting or a stressful situation. Like if you had a teen that came in that's had a bad day at school, something's happened, like, especially if, I think a lot of teenagers can be very moody people. But, give them a break, let them calm down from whatever's going on. Take a walk around the block, like we mentioned, or, just find a quiet spot to breathe. Maybe like do one of the wholesome activities, that we've mentioned. And then secondly there, move around. Physical activities are a really good way to handle and release overwhelming emotions. Maybe you could also do a couple of things, with your teen, in that aspect. Play like, shoot some basketball, like I said, go for a walk, a jog, or, a bike ride. Something of that nature. If there's a gym close by, if, you have a gym membership, go there. And then promote healthy habits, like, things that we've already mentioned there, like last week and our first week. Make sure your teen eats a good balanced diet, drinks lots of water, and gets enough sleep. They can really help the body and the mind feel good and be successful over vaping. And then also give rewards, like we mentioned. Remind your teenager about the rewards coming for reaching milestones and quitting successfully. Focus on, a thing that they want that can act as a mood-busting distraction. Then lastly, make resources available. Maybe, have somebody on your child's quit team to help him or her talk it out. Somebody that they can, trust, that doesn't vape, or maybe is an ex-vaper that's done it before. They can talk to them. Then if you feel like they need professional help, maybe consider having them, like, speak to a minister or a therapist. And so now looking over our assignments here for day 9, of course we're going to continue like with a hand to mouth, do that as often as necessary, as well as nicotine replacement therapy. Like if you're doing that, keep doing the visualization exercises. And now like in our other things here that like are in our textbook, on page 9, and of course if you don't have the textbook, be ready to write these things down, looking at our emotional cues. Which of 3 of those emotions or feelings that we've talked about are your most frequent triggers to vape? Identify them and explain what usually causes each emotion and how vaping helps you cope with them. For each one of them, what can you do instead of vaping? Like to mention here, trauma survivors are more prone to addiction than others. And that could have been something that was, very drastic, like maybe somebody was abused as a child, they've been assaulted, somebody was in a wreck, or for some people that could have just been something maybe not that drastic, like a very stressful job or stress at school, that caused you to start vaping. Like me, I was in the military, and like I've dealt with a lot of people that way. Like a lot of people start nicotine, because of the stress being in the military. And so you can mention that, those types of things. And maybe mention like what past hurt, enables self-soothing with vaping. Or like I said, maybe what stressful thing, did you maybe have happen in the past, that you use vaping to cope with. And now looking at our emotional mantras. And using that list of mental mantras that we mentioned before, write a couple of short, strong sentences that you can use as mantras to deal with your 3 vape-triggering emotions that you mentioned. Of course, our textbook there says 3, but if that's not a complete 3, try to get at least 3, but some people that might be 1 or 2, or that might be more. If there's even more than that, if you have, 4, 5, or 6, feel free to write those as well. And like, for like example, if you fear, for like young people especially, that you won't have any friends if you stop vaping, try something like this. I will overcome this fear and live my new life with courage. And I will make better friends that don't vape. Or certainly like if you're a person of faith, like things we mentioned before, I will overcome this fear, with the help of God. Something like that, to help you. Or that could be a Bible verse, a quote, something of that nature that might help you. And then lastly here are self-care activities. Like when you're feeling emotional, which self-care activities will work best for you? And of course, you don't just have to use those. You know, what else might help you? Like if there's another good hobby, you know, something that you have found or something that you really think will help you, you know, write that down as well. And so that'll conclude our day 9 lecture here, number 16 overall. And tomorrow we'll look at day 10 and we'll start looking at our routine, about maybe changing a routine to help us to quit vaping. And so look forward to that tomorrow, so you come on back and continue to be with us, and like I said, continue to write in your journal, and you know, do all the exercises, and we certainly always wish you the best, and we're here to help. Our email address is there. Reach out to us, and we'll certainly be happy to help you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, until that every kind of shadows flee away, I'm Dr. Coop, and I love you, and I appreciate you.